And we are live. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another OSR tabletop live stream with myself, DM Bloodworth, as you can see, Richard, and so hey, a lot of big news in the last, in the last 24 to 48 hours or so. Um, Kyle Brink from Wizards of the Coast, formerly of Wizards of the Coast, is now gone, and this was originally broken, I believe, by the Dungeon Delver, whose YouTube channel I follow myself, and then I saw it spoken about by the OGGM and Eric Tankar. It is certainly going to make its rounds through through all of the OSR or independent or even D&D, even a D&D focused YouTube channels, and I've seen it actually appear on other sites that are not normally just associated with tabletop role playing games, so like Clownfish TV, and I'm sure it's going to spread like wildfire through the internet over the next day or so. It's certainly already made a big impact over the last 24 hours, let's say. And I think a lot of the reason for that is from Kyle Brink's own words. So that's certainly going to be one element of it. But I think another element of it is going to be the fact that there are just so many events just rolling downhill for Wizards of the Coast these last couple of months, and I'm going to show that through some of the shares that I'm going to do on the channel. Just give me a moment, please. I'll be right. Well, my two girls chattering so loud. So anyway, um, let's see if we have any comments in there yet. Well, I see 8 people are following, so thanks for watching. I know I only give about 3-4 hours notice before posting this up there, and I know it's probably around dinner time for a lot of people, but I know Thursday nights there's quite a few people that on their channels they do like an 8 o'clock show, and I wanted to kind of give you something to listen to and then to lead into those if that's what you're choosing to do. So let me start going over some of the presentation that I'm going to make here. And I am going to start. Hello, Devious Dungeons Painting. First time I noticed you. So if I've missed you before, welcome to the channel, and good to see you here. I'm assuming that you caught the news as well that Kyle Brink is no longer with Wizards of the Coast, and it's always hard to tell whether or not these are moves on their own. Although I'd have to believe that there are many things going on behind the scenes that kind of triggered this, let's say. And I seriously doubt it was something that was completely voluntary. And they always make, they often make some kind of, a reasoning behind it where everyone gets to kind of save face. But I don't think so in this case. I think that the trend and the writing has been on the wall really ever since the December firings that took place at Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast. And then moving forward, you had, and I'm going to go through step by step. So let's begin with the very first thing I'm going to talk about here, and that is back in April, on April 3rd, the Hasbro CEO was talking about the future of Dungeons and Dragons during its 50th anniversary. This is, of course, Chris Cox, and he did an interview, and he mentions everything but the D&D tabletop role-playing game. All right, he mentioned its marketing, and he was primarily talking about the marketing of the D&D brand. And no matter what happens, I'm a firm believer that no matter what, nothing is going to kill no competitive company or competitive game, not even whatever forces are within Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast that are trying to kill off the tabletop role-playing element. They're certainly not in the agenda of killing off the brand of Dungeons and Dragons. So they are celebrating more so the brand of Dungeons and Dragons and not the game of Dungeons and Dragons. And I think that that's been their key issue and their key problem, because they're trying to make it sound like they actually care about the game system, but they put all of their efforts into everything to either diminish the legacy and the 50-year legacy of the game system, and they do everything just to promote its being licensed out to other creators to do something with it that they are not capable of doing for themselves. And so you see this farming out of the of the brand in order for them to earn money. And I will get to that next point because it's a perfect time to do that. In Q1 2024, D&D sales dropped by 30% from its 2023 numbers. So they took over $1 billion loss. And now that's not just from D&D, but that's from Wizards of the Coast. All right, so a combination of D&D and Magic the Gathering, plus Hasbro's toys, also struggling as well. But they took a huge loss, and the going into Q1 of 2024, which kind of coincides with when Chris Cox did that interview, right? So Q4 basically, Q1 basically ends, and it ends in March, and so he's doing this interview in April 3rd to be exact. And I will share the the article just to show it to you very, very quickly. I'm not going to spend time digging through it, but I will at least acknowledge where it came from. So I am going to look to share. Why can't I share? Let's see. Nope, that's not what I wanted. There we go. Sorry, pressed the wrong one. So let's see. So here's the article I wanted to bring up here. So this is back on April 3rd, 2024, and it's by Wyber, which I've never heard of before. I just wanted to find the interview that he had done, and he goes through when he's talking about Dungeons and Dragons turning, actually this is the author, Dungeons and Dragons turns 50 this year, and its owners plan to make games like its core, games like it the core of its business. Now, even in that one line itself, and its owners plan to make games like it the core of the business, not the game the core of their business. It's games like it. All right, which is kind of a a play on words, I guess, or it's just trying to obscure their true agenda here. And if you read through this article, all right, and I will link this article in the description of the overall video once it comes out of live stream. I will, link this so that you can look at it yourself. But if you go through this whole thing, they're talking about digital D&D adaptations, such as Baldur's Gate 3. The money that they earned from Baldur's Gate 3 it's already said and done. It's gone. There was no carryover, even from additional sales. All of that was upfront money. All right. Now they might have gotten it as soon as Baldur's Gate 3 was launched. All right, and maybe that's when they got the big surge, because that's where a bulk of the money that D&D games, the D&D tabletop role-playing game division of WotC made its money. All right, it made more money from that deal. And that deal, from what I understand, was actually set in like 2016. All right, so they had been working on Baldur's Gate 3 for, anywhere from 6 to 7 or 8 years. And then it was finally released. So that deal was already done. It does mention here that they, that they had to weather the storm, the backlash of the OGL leak, which everything about the OGL came to be true. So all of the things that were going on there, and the subsequent weeks of lying by Wizards of the Coast, were all proven to be true. All right, even to the point of the pricing scheme that they were looking to do, which I will cover in a few minutes as well. But then they had the movie was, it was a disappointing box office. No, it was a failure in the box office. They probably lost about $100 to $150 million on that movie. Then came the layoffs. These weren't layoffs. These were firings. They're not bringing any of those people back. All right. And that was across all of their divisions, right? That was across their Magic the Gathering and their D&D divisions. Meanwhile, the company is facing burgeoning competition like Critical Role, which, even if Critical Role isn't directly competing against Dungeons and Dragons, they have certainly left it. All right. And I will get to that point a little bit later as well. And that's going to hurt them. Online markets like DriveThruRPG features dozens of alternative role-playing games, which often find champions in popular YouTubers, such as myself and others, and so on and so forth, even though I'm tiny compared to some of the others. But a lot of the big-name YouTubers moved away due to the OGL, and there's nothing really to bring them back. Looking at all of the commentary I've seen with, with it, they're not coming back. All of the pushback and everything with the D&D 6th edition 5.5, D&D 1, whatever you want to call it, because they still haven't settled on what they want to call it either. It is not D&D 5th edition, no matter how they try to, obscure that fact. And then so on and so forth. But he does not bring up once any plans for advancing the tabletop role-playing game of Dungeons and Dragons. Not once. He doesn't bring up the 2024 core books. He does nothing. And this is on April 3rd, not that long ago. All right. Just a little bit over 4 months ago. So that's the first thing. And I will check my comments here. Hello, Steve. How's it going? Good to see you here. Rational Ginger. Brink being gone is a win, but unless the leadership changes, they will continue to slide. I think they're done anyway. I think that it's already, the writing is already on the wall that it's done. All right, you're going to see more. You're going to see more people jump ship, and they're not going to come back. They're not going to come back to it. So I want to show you. Sorry, my content doesn't truly on making money, so I don't need the OGL to do AD&D second edition content, but it helps. Yeah, I mean, it's like for most of us, um, for most of us, we have other alternatives to still create content that doesn't require the OGL. And now we can obviously use Creative Commons, where there's game systems out there that had been using Creative Commons all along, and they were close enough to D&D that if you wanted to create something that was fully compatible, you could without having to change anything, because they didn't have a lot of those. They didn't have a lot of those things that needed to be changed. No one was calling their floating eye beast a beholder prior to this anyway. So um, there wasn't much of a reason for some publishers out there to really worry about the OGL at all. They only used it as a failsafe, just in case Wizards of the Coast wanted to get litigious, which they tend to be, right? Pinkertons and all of that, you can see. So power is back at the home. So I'm excellent catching up with news. Okay, good. And let's see. Yes, the Latinx, los Latino, the Latinx orcs. Yes, and they're waffling on the AI thing too. I mean, how many times you got to get caught with lying about it? So I guess they just figured we're just going to welcome it and accept it as part of our marketing scheme. And others have been going the other route and particularly putting on an icon on their products to say no AI was used in the creation of this product. All right, so that's kind of the other swing, where it's like, hey, we're going to not only just say verbally support using real artists, but we're going to actually put it a sticker as a badge of honor on our products to show that we do this. So that's another great thing to do as well. I don't hold it against anyone if they're going to use AI art, and they're a small company, or even not even just a content creator as tiny as me, let's say. I can see for those kind of individuals using AI art, or those that are just openly, yes, we're using AI art. It was never an issue with them using AI art and getting caught at it, and then them admitting, oh yes, this is AI art. It was about the lying about it. All right, I think that's where they ran into trouble with it. It's often the cover up and not the crime itself. That's the big issue, and I think that's where it came from. So let's see. WotC seems to be heading towards a doubling back on Magic the Gathering, which is tried and true money maker for them. Yes, but even there, they're trying to go fully digital with it because their paper products are too iffy, and the cost of bringing them over from China is extremely expensive, and so they've been running into these problems with printed materials. It's just that much cheaper for them to go all digital, and that's what they want to do. A good example as far as the all digital. So I know they even mentioned it in one of the possibly the article I was going through. Monopoly Go made Hasbro $2 billion last year. All right, so this little game that you play on your cell phone made more money than Magic the Gathering and Dungeons and Dragons combined. All right, and it probably took them very, very little effort to do it. All right, and so there you have, if they took that same thing and created a Dungeons and Dragons experience using that, it would probably make $3 billion a year, and you'd see them just wrap everything up. All right. They would just say, hey, that's good enough for us. We're going to grow with it, because I don't think that what they have been doing is showing signs of making any kind of real money. Certainly not the money that they're looking for. And I'm going to go into and kind of detail that as well. So I will get caught up with your chats in a minute. So let's go to the next banner. So remember, that interview was on April 3rd. Then they got the quarterly report, had come out probably that first or second week of April. On April 15th, 2024, Cynthia Williams, president of Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro Gaming, informed the company of her resignation from the company effective April 26th. So again, and that should have been completed out 2024. So she was canned not 2 weeks after the quarterly report came out. All right. She saw the writing on the wall that there is no way that the D&D licensing, the D&D IP, is going to generate the established goal from Hasbro that D&D standalone must make $1 billion a year by 2027. And in 2024, she could probably read the projections and be like, there's no way we're getting there. And I am not going to be captaining the ship that doesn't make its port. All right. And so instead, she bailed. Or more likely was that Chris Cox was looking at it and saying, hey, you're just not producing, and bang, she's gone. All right. So one or the other, it really doesn't matter which it was. It's an indicator that things are not going well. And again, this is after the D&D 2024 announcements, and after they already said that this is when the first book is coming in, or it's shortly thereafter. This is when the books are coming out. She bailed, or they got rid of her shortly after that quarterly report. So let me catch up with some comments here. Yeah, they sue regularly, which I spoke about. Let's see. It's cheap to charge for digital and make more money. Yes. Plus, on the other thing was, Cal, is that if you have to do a reset on a product like they had to do with the Hadazee in Spelljammer, you can't pull back a physical copy of a book. That will be out there forever. All right, but you can alter what someone has on their D&D Beyond account, and you can alter it there, and you don't need their permission to it, to do so. And secondly, they can print out a copy of it so that they have preserved the original printing of it. And third, the people on D&D Beyond, they don't even own what they have already purchased, because Wizards of the Coast or D&D Beyond or whomever, Hasbro, retains the right to remove it from your library. Even though you have pre-purchased it or purchased it or whatever, they can remove it from your library without your consent required. All right, because you are simply renting it. All right. And some game companies on Steam looking, saying the same thing. I know a pretty big one. It's just slipping my mind which company that was. I'm sure somebody in the chat will remind me of it. But they tried to pull the same thing, or they said the same thing. And and it was universally said by gamers basically that that's a deal breaker. It's like we won't buy your stuff, all right, anymore, and it really is something that's not a well received idea. Yeah, we get the greed behind it, we get the control behind it, but it's just going to make people not buy the product. All right, so let me get rid of that banner so it's not just sitting there and highlighting. And let me get back to your comments. So that was the next component, I think. So you have the Hasbro CEO back in early April, April 3rd, talking about everything but D&D tabletop, and their plans for the D&D brand in the future. You have the firing of Cynthia Williams not 2 weeks later, and shortly after the quarterly report that showed that they had lost 30% or $1 billion from their collective gaming franchises. And you had that prior to that, you had the big axing of 1,100 Hasbro employees, many of them from Wizards of the Coast. Then you have the next shoe that's about to drop, which I'm going to bring up now. So I think that one of the things that, and this is my opinion, I think that the D&D 2024, whatever you want to call it, 65.5, whatever, I think that the pre-order scheme is failing to impress anybody. Remember, the whole time from January of 2023 all the way up until they started actually announcing these books, and they were doing all that nonsense play testing and whatever. And the whole time they kept on saying, oh, these are completely backwards compatible. It's not a new edition. It's not. And what that's saying is that you don't need to buy this. Then they kind of waffled back on that, never saying that you don't need to, you don't need to buy this. But then they started saying, but, in comparison, there are many new improvements to this that you're going to want to check out. And it's like you can't have it both ways. You can't say nobody needs to buy this, and then once you see that nobody is buying it, you say, well, there's a lot of changes, but it's still not a new edition. It's like they painted themselves into a corner, and they still don't know how to get back out of it again. All right, because they would have been far better off just saying, we're coming out with a new edition, and go with that. All right. I mean, they basically tried to, and they've probably accomplished, telling the 5e player base, you don't need to follow us forward anyway. All right. We don't need you. If they all follow, if only 10% follow us to the VTT, then we're going to be okay. We'll actually be better off leaving you behind. All right. Very similar to what they've been doing to us old school players, right? They don't need us, they don't want us, and they keep on shitting on, the game system that we grew up playing, so, but their 2024 pre-order, I have a feeling that it is not going well at all. And that, I think, is primarily the reason for this. So Kyle Brink being gone, I think, is primarily an indicator that the pre-order is not selling well. So let's take a look at that pre-order, and I'm going to share this one. And you're all probably familiar with this. Let's see if it's this one. Yes. So you all probably know that this came out like a week or so ago, maybe a little bit longer than that. And once all of the channels started looking at this thing and they're starting to say, but wait a second, why am I pre-ordering something and giving you money now for something that I'm not going to get until later? All right. And as late as February. All right. This isn't a Kickstarter. This isn't something that, I'm going to get, the I'm going to get the digital of everything right now, and then I'll get my books at a later date. This is, at least that's not how they packaged it, right? They want this money forward now, all right, and you're not getting anything for your money until much later on. And then look at the bundles that they're doing. It's kind of like a package of microtransactions coupled into one thing, and that's how it comes off. This is the way that you market a video game, not the way that you market a tabletop role-playing game. But again, it's all digital. They're focusing more so on digital than anything else. All right. And, I'm not going to pay for core rule books that I won't be able to play until February. I'm not going to pay for it now. All right. It's certainly not piecemealed out the way they have it. And this is assuming that these other books actually sell between now and then and actually start getting played. So, I just think that it was bad. And I don't know anybody that looked at this and said that this is a good idea. This is the way that you market a tabletop role playing game. All right. And that brings us back to that right there. All right. So, what is Kyle Brink's D&D legacy in his quote? And you know it all. All right. So this is what Kyle Brink is always going to be remembered for. All right. Again, in my opinion, this is what he will always be remembered for. And no, no, there it is. This is Kyle Brink's legacy. All right. So Kyle Brink's legacy. There's been mistakes made in years past where people assumed that D&D players were all, you know, white dudes in a basement. All right. Only people at Wizards of the Coast now believe that. All right. That has not been the experience of any of us who lived back in the time and actually played the game back then. It certainly wasn't my experience, and I can guarantee you that most players, that was not their experience either. All right. So, which has been a faulty assumption for a lot of years and gets more and more false every day. No, they didn't fix that assumption. They're not even talking about taking credit for breaking the assumption. No, they reinforced that assumption, all right, with their continuous attacks on the legacy of D&D. All right. So he's talking out both sides of his mouth here. All right. And then he says, honestly, guys, like me, can't leave soon enough for this hobby. Now, I know I was listening to Ted Bar the other day, or last night, whatever, and he was like trying to figure out exactly what Kyle meant by this. Like, did he mean Kyle Brink, speaking of himself and people that look like him, need to leave the leadership? I don't believe that. All right. That's not what he was saying, because he says, can't leave soon enough for this hobby. All right. And so I think that he was basically still feeding into that false impression or that false belief that D&D, legacy in D&D, had always been white dudes in a basement. All right. Kyle Brink believed that. All right. Now, I don't believe that he stepped down on his own. All right. I think that this was entirely a move to reflect, and I'm going to stop sharing there, entirely a move to reflect this. The pre order scheme fails to impress. It's not selling. All right. And he was the prime person associated with generating interest in future, in future D&D products. All right. And it's just not happening. They burnt their bridges with Larian Studios, right? So Larian Studios didn't want to work with them anymore, um, probably because Hasbro was probably asking for too much money for them to make a sequel to, and so Larian Studios like, no, no, we're just not going to go in that direction again because it would probably wasn't a good relationship when they first made that. It was before 5e really exploded, and so they probably had a much better deal. And you know, Hasbro being the very greedy corporation that it is, probably gave them an offer that they couldn't accept. Not even that you can't refuse, but no, they gave them an offer that they could not accept. All right, and that too might have been by design because I'm sure that they spent I think $1 billion in their digital plans, and so they want to be the delivery system for everything D&D. And where they go into other things that they can't produce themselves, then they're fine with signing licensing agreements. But I don't think those licensing agreements are going to come up as often as they think that they will. All right, and I will go to that reasoning in a few moments as well. Let me get caught up on the comments. Actually, let me get rid of the banner, and now I'll get caught up on comments again. So let's see. Yes, yes, those are all the VTT. So those are all little digital knickknacks that you can put on your backdrop, or you know digital dice or whatever. I mean, I don't know anybody that messes around on roll 20, let's say. I was like, oh, it really matters which digital dice I'm using. I mean, I haven't I haven't messed with digital dice on roll 20. Actually, for the longest time, um, they didn't always match up with the actual dice roll that you would see in the comment, bubble anyway. So it was like they were always a little bit off and a little bit wonky anyhow. Um, and nobody cares. It's like when I play online, a lot of times I have my dice tray. That's why I have this dice tray here because I'm rolling. I like physical dice in my hands, and my players are welcome to do the same thing if they wish to. Um, so there's no difference. Again, I will steal a quote from Eric Tenkar. I'm fairly certain he said it. There's nothing like holding dice in your hand and actually rolling physical dice in your hand. So there's no comparison. Um, so let's get back to yes. I mean the store owners were always rolled um, by saying like if you want Magic the Gathering, then you have to sell exclusively 5e, and that was a big scam that they ran for years. And it's one of the reasons why um, you know 5e grew as much as it did because WotC and Hasbro tried to effectively create a monopoly. All right, and what they did was they told those companies that had, or those small local game shops, told them that hey, if you want Magic the Gathering, which is the real cash cow, for both the game store and for Wizards of the Coast, then you can't carry any other bigger, or big tabletop role playing games. You have to stock 5e, whether it sells or not. All right. You have to stock it. It has to be on your shelves. And that's why when you go into most stores, you'll see a book that's sitting there with dust on it. It's been there forever. All right. A 5e book that's been there forever because nobody actually buys them. Their primary sellers are the core three rule books. After that, most of the things have been trash, really, going back to, again, in my opinion, going back to about 2019. Everything after 2019 has been garbage. All right. Maybe with the exception of D&D Essentials uh, Star Set, but everything after that is really garbage. Yeah. Hey, O'Neill, how's it going? All right. So, Tesla Front. Hello. Another name I don't recognize, so welcome if this is your first time. Honestly, having to throw him in front of about 20 different buses last year, I'm surprised he stayed this long. Um, yeah, I think it was just a matter of, um, I think it really comes down to what their projected sales are of D&D, I would call it D&D, D&D 2024. D&D 24. That's what I'll call it. I don't think it's selling well. And I think that they all kind of could see that, and they're dropping like flies. It'll be an interesting December to see who how much they cut out again. All right, and for those who will say that, oh, this is this is the D&D Infinite Edition. Yeah, no, this is the D&D Last Edition. All right, I don't think that they're going to make D&D hardcovers ever again after this. I think it's Hasbro. We've done with that whole model, and they're done with the tabletop role playing game copies of anything. Um, I think you're going to see a dry up. Those that are still playing fifth edition will continue to play fifth edition, just like many of us are still playing AT&D first edition with our original books. And the people that are playing 5e are going to continue playing 5e for the next 20, 30, 40 years. Um, as we have with our favorite editions. All right. And so you're not going to have, I think, the same thing taking place with D&D 24. Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right, Gandalf. It's you know, our experience is not what they portray it. Gaming stars are getting the Eiffel Tower experience. GW and Latvia high-fiving themselves. Sorry for the nightmare. Yes, they are. It's like, but I think that that's going to, it's slowly eroding. It is slowly eroding. Getting back to Games Workshop, I mean, they have a real with 3D printing now, and they're running into problems because people can 3D print their figures from various websites that have been allowed to exist for a long time, and now they're starting to see, the real downside to having that been allowed to exist for so long. And there's no turning that dial back either. It's like trying to unring a bell, right? You cannot unring a bell once it's been rung. Yes, I heard this too. I heard this too. Jess Lanzillo, although she's not exactly in the same position as he was. Um, but we'll see what they're doing with that. She attended Evergreen State College, yes. That was college where all the woke bullshit, crap started. Remember Brett Weinstein? Yeah, so, um, from what I heard, she has been up a while, um, but, I believe, the one thing I heard about her was that she started playing in 2nd edition, which, well, considering when she was in so she was a 2nd edition person, actually 98 to 2001 would have been 3rd edition, um, but, she, um I mean, it's not gonna make a difference. Uh, she came out of Magic: The Gathering, I believe, and then went over to them, so um, she's more of a lateral player, um, than somebody from the outside or whatever, of the ship, digital dice well. Yeah, um, I mean, I use them in my game, but I prefer to roll dice, for certain things anyway, and, the only reason why we do, I mean, I'm not using a digital dice roller when I'm sitting at a table with people, and I've actually seen that's how they play over there, right? They'll play on their iPad. That's how they were doing it, when they were in person there. It was like, "What? You're playing, you're rolling dice or whatever, on your screen, and, people aren't gonna sit around and play a VTT in person with each other. That makes no sense whatsoever." And that's what they're trying to market. It makes tired of bashing the original creators and their woke nonsense. Just listening to any of them talk is irrational. Absolutely. Especially, I mean, even like Ben Riggs just came out with some stupid comment as well. It's like, all right, um, another idiot that he thinks he wrote one book that's not even comparable to, um, let's say, John Peterson's original book. And and again, it's like you're talking about, gaming from a time long before you were born, and, you don't see these people. So, like, Lisa Tundra, who was back from then, but apparently he hated it all along. All right, so that's not a surprise either. You will find that guy that's out there, what was in the time and yet, didn't like it, and now it's gonna come back and say, "Oh, yeah, I played it back in the day, but all those people were shit, and I'm so much higher than them, higher minded than they were," kinda attitude, which is how he came across as well. He'll probably get shit canned in December, along with a bunch of others. Their VPT is due to be released in just over 2 months. Yeah. More like 2 years. They're not going to launch that thing in 2 months. Um, and it's certainly not gonna be spectacular. It is going to, be an utter disaster, or at least I mean, gaming companies can't even like, true video gaming publishers can't release a triple A, MMO, without the first couple of weeks being glitchy as hell. All right. And you go back to companies like World of Warcraft was unplayable the first couple of days, where your character would spin like top, right? And you had to shut your computer down just to boot it back up again, then wait an hour or more just to log in again. And it was utter crap, unplayable crap for days. I don't know how many patches and bug fixes they had to do in the first couple of days. And they were a big company, all right? They had what, like 4 World of Warcraft games before the MMO came out. So, this is gonna be This is not going to be good. You remember their original launch of it, they were playing it on like $4,000 Alienware laptop. All right. If you're not running that kind of a system, you're not going to be able to run the game either. I want to see what what the required uh, system notes are for the computer in order to run it at even at its marginal levels, let alone its optimized. I don't understand why there wasn't a massive boycott when they erased some cards from their website on faulty racism claims because they have a monopoly. And, you know, fall back on, the argument that, well, you don't actually own those things. And so, yes, we can take them away. And I forget, it was a big gaming company that was threatening this or dabbling with the idea of this, that was going to say, "Hey, know, you don't actually own that on your Steam library. And if you bought it from us, uh, yeah, yeah, that would at least be fun. But yeah, you don't color in your digital dice with a digital crayon. Yes, and you're going to see a lot more. You're going to see a lot more of the OSR and independent games that are going to pick up the slack here because I think that there is going to be a void, um, and that is going to allow for others to stand up and to bring in more people or keep the people that you had because you've been running your games for a number of years and you weren't relying on 5e. You were moved on as Mark did here, a couple years back. And so you're not dependent upon it. Oh, well, it was good to see you. And like I said, I apologize if I missed you in the past. I was trying to give new faces a shout out. Um, so like here, Ted Roach. Um, welcome if this is your first time. And the man of the hour. So so I'm pretty sure it was you might have broke this story, Dungeon Delver. At least I know I saw the OGGM mentioned and Eric Taylor definitely mentioned yours. So I went and asked yours, before doing this, but I wanted to do my own take on it. So, but I think you broke the story. So you all that credit. So if you don't know Dungeon Delver's YouTube channel, definitely go check it out. Because I think he's on a semi vacation right now, but he's still releasing super important content. And this was big because Kyle Brink was just such a deplorable ambassador of the hobby when he made that statement, and then the fact that they were elevating him to be like the face of the D&D franchise is and then for him to make a comment like that, I think is the reason why that is now his legacy. He will always be remembered from that, and that is awesome. That he will always be remembered for that racist, sexist, and disconnected from the fan base comment that was. Oh, let's finish up this thing. Remember, it's the reverse of Star Trek. Even the predictions. Yeah, likely not so much. Yeah. No, see, I don't know. Who the hell knows what this is? They don't want to call it 16. Um, I think they would have been better off if they started off with that and just said, "Hey, we're making a new edition. It's been 10 years. It's time to move on." And some things. I mean, literally, Chris Perkins, who I think not a great developer himself either, or designer himself. I mean, he even came out and said at one point in some interview, he was like, "I think there's too many subclasses." Then why'd you put them in? It's like you're going to complain that there's too many subclasses, and yet you have 48 subclasses or something ridiculous. Yeah, it's like you have the power to trim this down. Most of us, most of the gamers out there are looking to have something that is closer to rules light than to have something that is as bulky as Roll Master, let's say. It's just backwards thinking and not reading the room. And so, yeah, they deserve the collapse that I believe they're suffering now. Several are saying this is a new edition. There were too many. Yes, absolutely. It was always going to be a new edition. All right. They just didn't have they tried to play it both ways. They tried to have it where, well, we're not going to alienate the 5e people, but we want new people in, so we're not going to say it's this and we're not going to say it's that. We're just going to lie to them all along. We're going to, push out the idea that it's backwards compatible, even though, and this was said very, very early on, no one in their right mind would roll up a 2014 character from that player's handbook and play that character surrounded by a bunch of characters created by the 2024 Players Handbook. Because the 2024 Players Handbook characters, even if they're the same class, are always going to be more powerful than the older edition. All right. And so that in itself makes it a new edition. If no one's going to be willing to play the old and mix it in with the new, then you have a new edition. The rules are that much different. I'm going to save that for him because, I mean, 2E definitely adds a lot more fluff to it, but, a lot more, uh, what's the word I'm looking for? Bloat is a good example of it. Um, even though mechanically it did some things better than 1E, and it's just nostalgia for myself. I still prefer 1E over 2E or any of the other editions of Dungeons and Dragons, unless I'm playing games. Obviously, then I'm a totally a Beck me person. Yeah, yeah. If you have a video, Dungeon Delver, if you have a video where you kind of detail the two, you're welcome to post that uh, on my channel. Here in this comment and everything, so people can check it out as well. Um, but yeah, that's definitely something I'd love to hear your views on it. Yeah, he's not streaming. Yeah. Well, I hope you're enjoying your vacation. I think that's staying because they think they're fighting a crusade. They don't care about anyone one's old style play or the original is based on. Yeah, I mean it's well. Plus, on top of that, they if we're talking about Watson, the only difference into the old school D&D editions because they don't have the same talent to create it on their own. Um, and so that's why they harvest as much as they can from the old school. and they try to bamboozle to buy into their what they're selling. But I think for the most part, too many of us are smart on that, and we're not buying, and that's why you're seeing the slow bleeding out of Wisps of the Coast losing money and and hopefully losing market share. I've been saying now for months that I've seen at conventions and looking at game slots, game sessions actually being run and comparing it and looking them through. And 5e has been on the decline now for close to 2 years as far as filling in those slots. I see games like Castles and Crusades and Shadow Dark and Savage Worlds and a whole bunch of other systems out there that are just slowly chipping away at that pie of available game slots. And I've even seen in some instances where the combination of OD&D, the basic, AD&D First Edition, and AD&D Second Edition combined with matching 5e. All right, and so even the old school D&D is leveling up and and comparing, just as strongly against, 5e being run, than others, and, Call of Cthulhu's and those other game systems that are independent are still the same, roughly one-third of the pie, let's say. So, um, I think that the trend is looking forward, that they are losing, in the long run. I don't know who said "my dude." Uh, I missed that. There's always someone that thinks they brought fire to the masses. Yeah, it's like getting back to a Star Trek thing. Chekhov thought that Russians created everything, right? That was his character in, Star Trek. Russians always invented everything. Absolutely. The writing in is certainly not better. Gary's style is way better. I never say "my dude" to be condescending or not, so you might have said "my dude." This phrase I've been using since 1987. Play with what you love. Okay. Um, yeah, I missed the "my dude" thing, but, um, their logic is so dumb. Who cares what someone thought years ago? Um, yeah, and I actually was saying the same thing. I actually started using the term, and I don't claim to have coined this. I've never seen it written anywhere else though, but, I mean, I'm a historian by profession. I was a school teacher for, 26 and a half years. My master's degree is in US history. Um, I look at the way that West of the Coast current, current creative, when they look at, um, old D&D creators, the legacy of the game 50 years later. I see the same thing when people are looking at H.P. Lovecraft and Robert E. Howard as well. And I use the term chronocentrism, right? Just like ethnocentrism being a negative, chronocentrism is where you are using today's standards, whether it be social norm standards or whatever, and then applying them to, you know, 50, 100 years in the past and expecting the same of those individuals, and then casting aspersions upon them for not being as cultured or developed or whatever. Current time, I see that someone saying that sound wise. Um, Maybe I just move a little bit closer to this, and that might help. Sorry about that. In case reduce mic background noise and StreamYard. I should have that. Let me try. Um, let's see. Audio. I have it clicked. Let me click it and unclick it. Maybe that will mic volume. I'll turn that up a little bit. Maybe that'll help you. I hope. I've had some people say that my volume is way, way too high, but tell me if that's better. Um, Thanks for the tip. Hopefully that works. Let's see. Watch ashore is smoke thinking this might not stink someday, and they'll need to make a new edition one day. Point out, yeah, one day to a second edition or something like that. The whole. I know that there's some people who are saying, "Oh, there's no more editions." This is not that playable. I haven't heard anybody say, "Oh, I'm going to just throw out everything that I had in the past, and this is going to be my number one go-to game system." No one says that. I haven't seen a single person who has dug through this and say, "Hey, this is the end all and be all." On the contrary, I hear many people out there, as they have been branching out and looking at other game systems, that are saying, "Hey, these other game systems are just head and shoulders better. They run better, they play better, um, they're just better organized and everything. The only thing that they don't have is that D&D ampersand on it, and that's why people aren't going to notice it because they're buying the brand, they're not buying the game system." And I think those of us that are in the OSR space or the independent gaming space, or just in general, the hobby space of tabletop role playing games, we have to just keep on hammering away on the idea that yes, there are better game systems out there. Um, you know, I don't think in comparison, 5e was ever a better the best game system out there. Um, and I don't even think that they believe that either. They just believe that it was um, component, enough, like enough little pieces coming together, and you could pick and choose pieces you wanted to play with. Um, but it's still a class and level based system, and that has limitations to it that other systems that are just skill-based systems are just much flexible to support wider variety of game styles or gaming styles or play styles. Yeah, I don't think it's ever been the best and end all and be all. Best selling, but maybe not the best. Not. I don't think the best. I mean, I always compare it to the McDonald's hamburger. No hamburger in the world sells better than the McDonald's basic hamburger, and nobody would pick that burger over any other burger if they had their choice of two or more hamburgers to eat. All right. The reason why McDonald's sells is because there's like three of them in every town. They're fast, they're easy, easy to get to, and they used to be cheaper. Actually, it's actually cheaper than McDonald's and a better burger. But that's its closest competition. And yeah, a page of conversion rules. Yeah, and then nobody, you know, those of us that are familiar with a lot of different game systems saw right through that anyway. Yeah, but you're comparing apples to apples. you'd rather play the Paladin of 2014 over the Paladin of 2024. However, your Paladin of 2014 is not going to be comparable in power to a 2024 fighter or magic user or cleric or whatever. You know what I'm saying? That's where it's going to lose ground in. You're not going to have the same um, action mechanics as the other player characters will have. All right, and so you'll be disadvantaged there. Hey Doc, how's it going? And Paladin has been meaningless since 2016 or so. Paladins are lovable good humans with a high charisma and wisdom. Period. I don't know. I had Paladins in my 1E, and I love playing it. Good. Good drink. So let's see. I 1E had assassin and did not get rid of demons and devils. Yeah, well, that was a plus to second edition. Surplus 5E. It'll be at Ollie's. It'll be at Ollie's soon. Yeah, I think that there's too much. They allow too much of multi-classing like crazy. You shouldn't be able to take, you know, a level of this, a level of that, a level of this to have all of these, stacking abilities. Let's see, paladins were the original racists. Yeah, yeah, they were the original ethno cleansers. Um, oh yeah, no, they're going to kill their. You see, and I've made this comment as well. Um, the only games publisher that can kill Dungeons and Dragons is Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro. They're the only ones. They're the only D&D killer out there. They will kill their own game before anyone else can kill the game, and sweep up the greater market share. So yeah, their own real competition is themselves, and I don't believe that they mind playing that role. I think that it is a concerted effort for them to so alienate the tabletop role playing game from their own corporate viewpoint that they'll eventually just shelve it, and they will just take that D&D brand, which will never die, and try to make it into more video games and so on, and go forward with that. Um, a real D&D killer, where you'd see Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro stop the tabletop role playing D&D, is if they did come out with like a D&D Go model. Again, we weren't here earlier. Their Monopoly Go made $2 billion last year, more than Magic the Gathering and D&D combined. All right. If they could package the D&D license to something like that, or even the MTG license to something like that, you would see them drop both. All right. They would abandon both for something along those lines, because they don't need to write anything with it. They don't need to, there's no writing, there's no lore, there's no anything about it. It's just mindless gameplay that is generating vast amounts of microtransactions. All right. I play it myself, but I haven't paid a penny to play it. All right. And I never will. But it is just a game that You could sit there and just futz around with it for 5 minutes, all right, and then set it aside, and not play it for a couple of days. It's just something that is just mindless, blah, 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 run around the board, build up some stuff, and then done. And then you can walk away from it. Um, in comparison to other games like Starfleet Command, all right, that's a game that's built on microtransactions, and it sucks. It sucks you in to buy them. All right, so you will spend money on that game because without spending the money in the game, it's almost like I shouldn't even be playing this because you just can't keep up. Um, Hey, thanks a lot, Doc. That's really, really appreciative. I get the impulse to take umbrage with the disrespect and bad redesigns, but the way to handle Lottie is to move on and ignore them. Don't let them keep control over the conversation, start a new one. Yeah, I think it is time that we just keep on showcasing the games that we love playing that aren't Wizards of the Coast, and at the same time, like I said, I normally don't talk about Wizards on my channel, except for this Kyle Brink thing because he was such an ass towards the old school that I was like, I can't let that slide without just bringing it up and saying, hey, you know what? The guy finally got his comeuppance, and he finally got what he wished for, right? He wished for guys that looked like him to be out. I guess that's exactly what happened. That goes back to a comment that I had made earlier. Yeah, let me try to get caught up with these things here. So again, thanks a lot, Doc. And well, Elliot, there is a paladin in my current 1E group. The guy plays him more like the Solomon Kane than medieval a Puritan paladin. Yeah, I mean, yeah, Solomon Kane is absolutely a paladin, just in a different time period. So works perfect. Interrupt your enemy when they are in the middle of making a mistake. Give them lots of room. Yeah, yeah, it's yeah. Let your enemy or enemies tear each other apart, and and you just sit on the sidelines and watch. It's like when you have you're on an adventure with multi factions and they're fighting against each other. Our characters just sit back, let it roll for a while, and then jump in and wipe everybody out once they're all depleted. Hey, Ironcaster, how's it going? So let's see if I have any more banners left. Let's see. So, oh, so let me throw one up here and let's see what we can generate here. Because this again, like I said, it's kind of like a snowball effect, right? Overall, started off with saying that there's keep on hitting the wrong things. Um, I kept on saying that there was like a snowball effect. It started with the Hasbro interview on April 3rd, where Chris Cox did not mention tabletop Dungeons and Dragons once. Then, 2 weeks later, Cynthia Williams was fired or moved on. They never quite said anything about it. To my knowledge, I think she was just fired because the Q1 reports came out. Then we had then we had Kyle come out, and now he's fired. I guarantee it's fired because my theory is that the pre-sales of D&D 2024 are abysmal, and so you know he's either being thrown under the bus or scapegoated, or they truly felt that he was responsible for it not doing well. So I think that there's a lot of things in there. Now, the next banner I'm going to bring up is some other things that I've seen happening along the way, and some things I just recently, heard about as well. Um, and and so this is the future is bleak, all right, for D&D because it's not going to get the outside support that it had really thrived on. When you talk about, from like 2019 to 2022, early 23, um, or really late 22, 2023, the OGL hit in January or late December and carried over into January. Um, Critical Role is moving on. All right. If Critical Role has a new season of whatever they're going to be doing, it's not going to be based on 5e. All right. It's going to be based on either Daggerheart or something else. Um, so it's not going to be based, and it's certainly not going to move to the new D&D 2024. Stranger Things season 5 is probably not going to happen until 2026. They got super delayed from the strikes, the Screen Actors strike, and the other strikes as well at the time, and and most of those people that were hanging on, most of the lead characters that were hanging on, waiting for the next season to be filmed, they're all doing other stuff. All right. And so to come back and do Stranger Things, they're, it's good that it's going to be the last season because there's no way that they're going to hang on for anything in the future. And the whole idea that Stranger Things, even though season 4 was more heavily influenced or connected to D&D, let's say, um, you know, with them actually playing the game, actually seeing it being done before they were playing AT&D first. Let's be clear, uh, it, it may not be so connected that strongly to Dungeons and Dragons. I always thought that it was more connected to Call of Cthulhu than it was Dungeons and Dragons. Um, at least it had more of that imagery to it that was more Call of Cthulhu. And so, just because the kids used the names of Dungeons and Dragons creatures, for things that look nothing like them in the game, but the fourth season was definitely focused on D&D, and I'll agree with that. Um, and it was really the best part of it too. So no excitement around the new the new D&D 2024. I didn't see anyone truly excited about it. All right, and watch these nonstop attacks on D&D's 50-year legacy, pushing away the older fans. I mean, they came out with that history of the D&D from 1974 to 1979, what it's going to be. They came out with that huge disclaimer in it that went even beyond what it was in on Drive Through RPG. And I mean, I did a video on it before I even knew about disclaimer and said that there are cheaper alternatives. You can get John Peterson's book. Let me find it. Before I create a disaster. Get the Game Wizards. All right. This was, I mean, this says it was 25 bucks. I don't think I paid 25 bucks to get this. When I got this, it was a lot, it was less than that. Um, but I guarantee you that whatever he put in a new one was 90% from this anyway. He's not rewriting a whole history again. So get that. You can get the OD&D draft, of the first Dungeons and Dragons 1974, technically 1973 in that draft, all right, from the from the case notes, the case files of the lawsuit between Dave Arneson and Gary Gygax. So you can get that, all right, and you can see the same exact thing that they recreated into into that book. All right. And then finally, you can get something like The Secrets of Blackmore DVD, all right, for 20 bucks or 30 bucks, whatever it was. And combined up, you're paying about $60. I think I maxed it out to about $60 instead of paying $100, and you don't have any of the unnecessary animosity towards the creators of the hobby that you had in that book there. So, and I read the email statement by Robert Kuntz, and just absolutely dead on with it, and really, for all of us who have been around for that long and have been playing the game for that long, really kind of tired, just tired of it. And for them to keep on going to that well, as if that's selling anything. They lost $1 billion last year. All of their animosity towards the old school is not doing them any good. They're not making any money off of it. If anything, they're hurting their sales, and they deserve to. So let's see. All third-party material will still be there, but that requires newcomer player to be able to sift through all the old stuff and even find some of the Kickstarter stuff out there. Um, Stranger Things would inspire me to play Call of Cthulhu and not D&D. Yeah, I mean, if anyone, I use my girls as an example. My girls love Stranger Things. They love Stranger Things because of the boys that are in it. They don't give a rat's ass about Dungeons and Dragons. I tried to, lure them in when they were, 15 and 13. I said, hey, check this out. This is the game that they're playing. Don't you want? No, I don't want to play that. That's nerdy stuff. They followed it for the boys. That's it, right? And yeah, Stranger Things did not bring them in. All right, and even though I didn't watch Critical Role, although I liked the cartoon was good. But they're not going to watch Critical Role and uh, and suddenly start playing D&D. Yeah, yeah. So I thought Slaying the Dragon was a good book. Yeah, but what Slaying the Dragon might have been a good book, but since then, I think that Ben Riggs is trying to he's trying to align himself with the anti old school creators. And I mean, he recently came out with a Twitter post or whatever, basically saying Gary Gygax was a misogynist, racist, blah 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 blah, blah, kind of thing, just chiming in as if it's like he's trying to get hired by Wizards of the Coast or something. It's just um, you just kind of expect it. You expect that, this is where he's coming from, and that's what he's angling for, right? Is to get that credibility from them rather than, um, it's just interesting. Exactly. I just spotted um, something that I thought was what actually caught my eye is virtual single. But yeah, it's virtual single. He's trying to attract people to cause controversy with that tweet and get people talking about him because he probably doesn't have another book in him to come out and talk about the same subject again. Suits and shells, yeah, That would be a good corporate game for them. Yeah, Stranger Things is a good show, although one of the seasons was kind of boring. I think the 3rd season was a little bit boring. The 4th season certainly brought them back to play. Brought it back, made it interesting again. Um, who knows if the 5th season will be decent or not? It's just, yeah, you gotta watch it to the end, I guess, to just finish it off. No, I don't think Dice Tales that they will sell the brand. What they'll do is they'll mothball. They'll put it on the shelf and they will sit on it. Look at how many brands, IPs that Hasbro has done nothing with. All right, they've done nothing with Star Frontiers. They've done nothing with Gangbusters. They've done nothing with um. They've done nothing with Boot Hill. They've done nothing with Gamma World. They've done, there are so many different TSR era IPs that they own, and they've done nothing with them. All right, they won't do anything with most of the world settings. All right, they don't even want to touch them because they'd have to do so much modification to them, and they don't have the talent to create their own world settings. They'd rather outsource that as well. So I don't see them, but they'll never sell it. Oh, they're not going to sell it. They want to sell the license for the D&D logo. They can make more from that than they can from producing the top role playing game. And I think that the VTT is going to be a disaster. I think that it's you know um, as people are getting back to doing more, in-person gaming, and conventions are starting to ramp back up again. Uh, the reliance on VTT. This is not 2020 to 2022 anymore. Um, when everyone was forced to play over a VTT and on through Discord or FaceTiming or whatever was at the time, um, that 2.5 year span is done, and the VTT's heyday, I don't think is going to last as more and more people are getting back out there and playing in person. As far as early teen TV goes, I only own Game Wizards. I own a few. I've only skimmed through a bunch of them. I've never read any of them from like start to finish because they're dry, very, very dry reading. But you know, I have of Dyson Men. I have a whole bunch of them that they're all pretty decent for what they do, and I've checked out different points of interest in them. Like I said, I've never read them all from cover to cover. Yeah, I bought the Stranger Things box set, the starter box. What a piece of crap that was. I might, but that's going to be a new Hasbro CEO. Um, that's going to take for the collapse of Hasbro, which could happen. Um, but I think that they have other franchises that are huge. Again, like I mentioned, the Monopoly is huge for them. Peppa Pig is huge for them. They make billions off of that as well. So they could slough off all but like three franchises and be better off. But corporations don't do that. They just sit They sit on those IPs. They could license them out for, this is exactly why I wrote Shadow Sun. Watsy's never going to bring back Dark Sun. They will just leave it untouched. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Those corporates have had a nice whiff of the BG30. Yeah, and that money's gone already. Watsy, what if they were, why did they burn that bridge with Larian Studios? I don't know, but it was certainly their choice to burn that bridge. So let's see. Banners, I've made this point several times. This was going to be the ender for my my take on this thing. The D&D brand will survive, but not the TTRPG iteration. I don't think that that's going to last beyond 2027. Um, I think that if it loses more money between then, they might just shelf it even sooner. Yeah, Hasbro sits on most of the great Avalon Hill games. Exactly. I mean, how many of those games I even forgot that they owned Avalon Hill. That's how much they haven't done anything with Avalon Hill, and they sat on it to kill it because it was a challenger to the overall gaming hobby. All right, so most of Avalon, they're still part of the tabletop RPG hobby. There is elements of role playing even in those combat, very heavy combat, Avalon Hill games. Um, they own SPI, they own Victory Games as well. So they haven't done anything with James Bond, which was the original publisher of that. So yeah, they own SPI and Victory Games as well. They just gobbled up all these games and they're sitting on them. If you're familiar, so there's a company called Broadcom that operates the way Hasbro is. Yeah, I mean, that's what they would love to do, um, and they want to try to emulate that kind of thing. And like I said, their model is already out there. With the model is out there, and I don't know exactly um, when Monopoly Go began its development, but it certainly didn't take as long as you as long as like an MMO does, or as long as their VTT is going to take. And it just made them so much money that they're probably looking at this other thing and saying, "Why the hell are we going to bother with a VTT where we can create something that's just like a what do they call it? Like a portable, a portable game that people are playing on their iPhone, and we can make a fortune off of this and just dump all the other crap that they're doing. They don't need, you know, um, they could just have the the computer development team that they hired for $1 billion and have them turn out things like that. Make them a lot more money to do so. Since we have a complete copy of the 1914, so I'm happy to. You're still talking about the Avalon Hill, right? Um, it's squad commander or squad leader. I don't remember if I played squad leader at all back in the day. I played. I'm going to conflate SSI games too. Like I played like Panzer Blitz and I mean I love the B-17 game. The Queen of the Skies, and there's a bunch of others that are really good as well. Uh, I'm gonna move them into my. I gotta move them out into my bookshelf space. I move them all into my closet. Um, Wizard's Quest was a great game. I love that game as well. That game I played tons of. I played tons of Luftwaffe as well, and the Wizard's Quest was an awesome game. Well, the orcs were evil in that game. Can't have evil orcs anymore. That's why. That's probably why they won't publish that again. The orcs were the only bad guys. So, so let's get rid of this comment that's highlighted, and let's see what else we have here. So, and it's a little bit after 8. So, and this is about where I was looking to wrap it up. So, well, I pretty much went through my spiel. So, goodbye and good riddance, Hal Brink. Uh, Glad to have seen that finally, um, you finally have or lived up to your own claim that like you can't leave the hobby fast enough. Uh, and I have more of a feeling that it was not a choice, but just a Hasbro kind of throwing him under the bus and throwing him out the door because their projected sales are not where they need to be, and that's yeah, he can learn the code and head up video game division. Now, I think they are not. Um, you know, they're not in the place of demoting people. I would think that KO is the next one to go. I forget what his first name was, but I have a feeling that he's the next one to go because he was leading that whole division of and I think he was the true source of pushing the OGL the way that it was. So I think he's going to be the next to go. I think that if these books don't sell, especially the first two, so if the player's handbook doesn't sell and the DMG doesn't sell, the monster manual for some odd reason they pushed to February 2025. So if the first two books don't sell, I would think that by December you're going to see another big cut, and you're going to see you'll probably see some big names. Um, cut from that. I don't want to put out names right now, but you can probably guess which individuals are probably be gone, especially if they pretty much say, "Hey, we're done with publishing uh, Dungeons and Dragons as in book form," and so those people are no longer needed for that purpose. And I think that that's what's going to happen in December if and it's probably not even a strong if. It's probably, but if the first two books do not sell well. I think you hit it with the VTT comment. They want to create something that's cheap and easy to replicate that doesn't require creativity or very. Yeah, yeah. It's absolutely that, and they want to be able to charge can't create anything of your own on their VTT unless you're paying a monthly subscription. So, and at a higher tier as well. Um, I fully believe that their open tier to have a live DM and to have and to have that DM able to upload his or her own adventures in it and to run it like that. It's going to be $30 per person at that table. So $150 a month they will be raking in for every table, um, and they only need 10% of the current player base, for that to make D&D um, make more than it's currently making now. So only 10% of the player base to make more than what it's currently making now. And I think that's why when they saw that model and said, well, then what do our numbers have to be by 2027? And originally it was said something like they need to have, or they projected, or they wanted to have as proof of success, something like 30 million users on D&D Beyond. There ain't no way in hell they're getting to 30 million users on D&D Beyond. Not between now and then. It's just not going to happen. Hey, Mercurius, thanks a lot for doing that as always. And listen, since I was going to do this on September, on the 15th, the second half of the month, but so many people have logged in here, so I'm going to uh, I am going to gift out 5 as well. Now, these are only temporary ones, 1 month gifts and everything like that. It costs me nothing to do it, but it'll give you an opportunity to check it out. And oh, Mirador, one of my players, was just gifted that as well. So thank you so much for that. And I'm going to gift out the last of my 5 for the month. Um, since I'm going away on vacation in a bit. So there goes 5 more. So 5 gift now, and there it goes. So let's see who got them. So Dice Tales, Nosferatu. I love that name. That's a scary ass movie. Nosferatu, scariest movie I've ever seen. Good. Hey, you got one. Dice Springer and Kevin Lamb. Um, so congratulations to all of you for having won a free gift. I can get rid of some of my windows here and get back over to here. So well, yeah, $150 a month for that they would be collecting for every single gaming table wanting to have a live DM. So 4 players plus a DM. That's $150 a month. And I think that in their best year, D&D tabletop role playing game made $130 million. And that would have been in 2021, 2022, that year. And it's been downhill ever since. All right. And really, it's all based on the pandemic. So just based on the pandemic alone, that's where they made a bulk of their money. And then they had all those other supports, Stranger Things, they had Critical Role, they had all of those feeders into it. Baldur's Gate 3 gave them one brief breath during 2023. And as soon as 2024 rolled around, 1 billion loss. All right, 30% decline because that money's already gone. All right, that money came in. It was counted for that year, and then boom, gone. They took a 30% loss even after cutting all those jobs in December. The point of cutting those jobs in December is so that their quarterly report would reflect not as much losses, right? And yet they still showed a 30% loss, which means it would have been a monumental loss if they didn't cut those jobs in December. It would have shown even worse on their ledger. So they're struggling. They're really, really struggling, and it's good to see that that is the open window for the OSR and the independent game publishers to step in and fill in that void. And the best way to fill in that void is for us out there, to run those games and to participate in playing in those games, and to, start flooding Roll20 or any of the VTTs that you are currently using, and run those games there. Or if you're going to conventions, play other games at conventions, run other games at conventions, and just keep on getting out there and pounding away on the streets. It's like voting, right? You're getting out the vote. You're showing them that, no, these other games are worthy of our attention, and they're more worthy of our dollars than Wizards of the Coast. All right. And so, yeah, just keep on pushing other game systems. And, and that's the way, getting back to, that whole idea, let's deprive them of oxygen. Don't let their game breathe in the future. And the best way to smother it out is to play other games, and to buy other games and to run other games, and let people seeing you do that is really important as well. So let's see. So those of you that have either been gifted or gifted a membership, I open up my gaming to members. So if you come onto my Discord and you just jot in there that, hey, I'm a new member on your channel, I will give you I'll give you a role on Discord, and then you can you might be able to have an opportunity to jump in on any of the games that I'm opening, and I have open game slots or whatnot. I am running a Shadow Dark campaign that runs on Friday nights, although I have my 4 players right now. But I was thinking of running that new campaign where, if there's a total party wipe, I will restart with a whole new group of 4 players and go forward like that, or or just create another segment and keep on, or bring in more players as well. I haven't quite decided yet. We're only going into our second session tomorrow night, so really looking forward to that. And yeah, I mean, between Castles and Crusades and Shadow Dark, those are my 2 go-to games right now, game systems right now. And Shadow Dark is becoming more and more my go-to at conventions because it's such an easy game system to run at conventions and people want to play it. And Castles and Crusades will always be my home game, unless after months or even a couple of years we grow tired of our current campaign, and I'll switch back to something else. I'll probably end up going back to AT&T First Edition again for another long campaign. So, again, run new games, play old games, run old games, do whatever you can to just keep on pushing the fact that 5e or 6e are not the best game system out there to begin with, and there's other more deserving games for your time and your money. Okay, so so actually Off Grid is another one of my players. Like Off Grid and Mirador are both players in my Shadow Dark game on Friday nights. So we'll get right back to gaming tomorrow night as well. So and Dice Tales, if you're not already on my Discord, since you have that membership logo, I will pass that on to you, that role. And let me actually throw up the Discord invite. It's in the Discord invite is in every single video on my channel. All right, so it's in the description notes of every video on my channel, as well as like the various affiliates that I have, whether it be Drive Through or Fantasy Grounds. And, so any of those links you hit, you'll be able to join in as well. But I will put in the Discord. Now this is one of those 7-day things, so you have about 7 days to actually use it. Just to. But I'm going to be doing a Thursday night live stream, probably around this time, to virtually every Thursday going forward. So this is going to be my normal Thursday night live stream at like 6:30-ish or so. So there's my Discord. So if you're not already on my Discord, here goes the invite. Oh, it's taking some time. There it goes. So there's the invite. So you can jump in on that Discord. Everyone's welcome. It's a free forum. And, once again, thanks for those of you. I will put up again, thanks, Doc. And thanks, Mercurius, for your generous gifts. And the 5 winners that got my freebies for the remainder. I accidentally jumped out, but I am back in again, and we're still live. So that's what happens when you're opening and closing windows too fast. So anyway, I am going to wrap this one up. So everyone, thanks for joining, and you all have a great rest of your week, and hopefully a great weekend coming up. And I will see you next Thursday for another live stream, and be on the lookout for a lot of new content coming to the channel as well. So you'll have a good one, and take care.